friends. Welcome to this week's M-Kids Bible Adventure.
Hello, my name is Jacob, and welcome to another Miracle Kids or M-Kids Bible Adventure story. I'm with Natty. How are you, Natty?
I'm doing great, and you, Jacob?
I'm good. Okay, so today we have another story from the Bible, and this time we'll be reading about Naomi. Know any Naomis in your life?
Not much, no.
Okay, I think I only know two, but of course, it's a common name. All right, so let us now look at Naomi. So Naomi is the one saying the following words. Let's imagine her speaking. "Can't we stay here in Bethlehem?" she said to her husband. "We have family and friends. Rain will come someday. Then the crops will grow again and the famine will end." So, do you know what a famine is?
I think it's when there's lots of droughts.
So famine is when there isn't rain and there isn't enough food because there's no rain.
Like meaning as in the crops wouldn't grow. Okay.
Exactly. That is what a famine is. So we find Naomi talking to her husband. Her husband wants to leave their home and go to another country where there is rain. But Naomi wants to stay. And this is how they're talking. "I don't want to wait, Naomi. If we go to Moab now, we can take plenty with us to have a good life there. But soon there will be very little food to eat in Bethlehem." So Naomi thought to herself, but what good would life be without God? Naomi worried about their two sons. She knew the Moabites worshipped idols. But Elimelech, her husband, did not seem to be afraid that his sons would ever do that. So they packed their belongings and moved to Moab. Naomi's husband began a business there.
I like the fact that Naomi first thought of God and her children.
Yes, and she was brave to think about God because there was no food in Bethlehem, in their country. So she would rather stay in a place where there was no food and trust in God than to go to a country where there was food but people didn't believe in God there. So that is what Naomi was thinking. So when they went to Moab, the years passed and Naomi never stopped listening for any news from the land of Israel. She missed her family and friends. She missed going to Jerusalem to worship the Lord. Her sons were growing up and would each need a wife soon. But even though the famine was over, Naomi's husband made no plans to return to Israel. So, the famine ended and it did eventually rain in Israel. But Naomi's husband decided to stay in Moab because he had a business there and they were making money.
I think it's because of focusing on the human nature of people.
Yes.
I think it's because instead of focusing on God and going back to His people, I think we're focusing on ourselves and the money that we're making instead of thinking about our Most High.
That's true. Many people do think like that. Anyway, then Elimelech died, leaving Naomi alone with her two sons. She tried to talk them into going back to Israel, but they said Moab was their home. "What about wives? We each have chosen our own wife among the girls here." So Naomi was sad, but she liked Orpah and Ruth when she met them. So Orpah and Ruth were the wives of her sons. So she treated these girls as if they were her own daughters because she loved them. She prayed for them every day and told them all about the Lord. Orpah listened just to be polite, but Ruth wanted to hear every word.
Wasn't Ruth David's grandmother?
She was, but we'll get to that later. I think great-great-grandmother. Anyway, then something else that was sad happened to Naomi. So both her sons became sick, and they also died. Isn't that sad?
That is pretty sad.
Yeah. So God has left me alone, God has left me alone, Naomi said. She had lost everything that was important to her. Naomi had no way to make a living, so she would have to beg for everything she needed to stay alive. I'm going home to Bethlehem, Naomi said. At least there, if she starved to death, she would be among her own people. Ruth put her arms around her mother-in-law. We'll go with you, Orpah agreed. No, you have families here. Go home to them. They will find a new husband for each of you. But Orpah took Naomi's advice and went home. But Ruth refused to leave. I will go wherever you go. I will stay. Isn't that amazing of Ruth, to stay with Naomi, to go to a land where she doesn't know?
I think that is great.
Yeah. Anyway, after that, Naomi left Moab and returned to Bethlehem with Ruth. When they arrived, Naomi learned her mother and her father and brothers and sisters had all died because they had been in Moab for a very, very long time. Though she had other relatives, she did not ask them for help, and no one offered her any. Ruth comforted her mother-in-law. I will go and gather grain that is left over from the fields being harvested. We will have enough to eat for a long time. The landowners will not be kind to you because you are a woman from Moab. So, Natty, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been a foreigner in a different land, in a different country?
Well, I would say I have, since I have been to Botswana before.
How did it feel in Botswana? Were people mean to you?
No, not necessarily. They're actually very, very good.
Okay. All right.
And you?
No, I've never been a foreigner. But I have lived in a town that was new. And it felt awkward, especially when people didn't speak the language I was speaking. Okay. So Ruth was a foreigner in Israel. And Naomi warned her that the people of Israel might not be kind to her because she was a foreigner from Moab. But this is what Ruth said. The Lord our God will protect me and provide what we need. And the Lord did. The first day Ruth went into the fields, she met Boaz, a wealthy landowner who loved God. He found out who Ruth was and how kind she had been to Naomi. So Boaz treated her kindly. When Ruth told Naomi about Boaz, Naomi was filled with hope. She could tell that Boaz liked Ruth very much. He is a relative of my husband who died. Do exactly what I say, Ruth, and everything will be fine. She told Ruth to dress in her finest clothes and go to the threshing floor where the men worked and celebrated the harvest. Sleep at Boaz's feet and let him know when he wakes up that you would be happy to marry him. He will tell you what to do then. So Ruth obeyed.
She was pretty obedient, don't you think?
Very, very obedient. But Naomi is also wise and treated her well. So Boaz happily married Ruth, and they had a son, Obed. Boaz took back Elimelech's land and gave it to Obed. Do you remember who Elimelech was?
Not necessarily.
Elimelech was Naomi's husband.
Oh, I didn't know that. I forgot.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I did not know. Sorry about that. Yes. We'll just end there at you forgetting, and then we'll continue. After that, Elimelech's family always had their own property. Naomi loved her grandson, Obed. She took care of him as if he were her own son. All her friends were happy with her. And they said to her, "You have a family again because of Ruth. She's better than 7 sons." Naomi laughed with joy as she held baby Obed. God did not forget me. She knew God had given her and Ruth blessings far beyond anything they ever could have expected. And that's the end of our Bible story for today. Do you have any questions?
Not necessarily. I wouldn't say anything about. But then, who are the Moabites?
The Moabites were a people. They were a neighbor to Israel. They were people that used to be in Canaan, but they moved away. Okay, no, that's not the right answer. The Moabites were Israel's neighbors.
Instead of following God, they followed idols.
Yes. Okay. So I want to hear some interesting facts about that story.
Yes, I do.
All right. So a threshing floor. A threshing floor is the place where wheat, which can be made into flour, is separated from chaff or straw, which cannot be eaten. The men who beat the grain to separate it would sleep on the threshing floor because they would work there again in the morning. So you know that wheat is what we use to make bread, right?
Mm-hmm.
And cakes and flour. Okay. So wheat comes in small. So wheat is attached to the plant, and you have to beat the plant on the ground to let the seeds become free. That's what is called threshing. So you hit the wheat on the ground in a process. You hit the wheat on the ground to release the seeds, and then you gather up the seeds, and then you can crush them if you want after that.
So maybe when you kids go to a farm one day, you could do this as well.
Yes, you can. Although the way to thresh has changed over the years. Because of machines and things that we've made, it's become much easier. But this is how it was done back a long time ago. So sometimes sad things happen to people, even to those who love God. But God always sends someone to comfort and help those who are sad. Has bad things ever happened to you?
Well, I think bad things will eventually happen to everyone. Yes, there have been bad things that have happened to me.
When they happened, did you ever feel like God has forgotten? Did you ever feel like God has forgotten you?
Well, I do have that sense of arguing about why this has happened to me. I don't think I've gone to a point of saying he has forgotten about me.
Okay.
What about you?
Me too. Sometimes bad things have happened, and sometimes I've felt like God has forgotten me. But then he reminds me through his word and through other things that happen that he hasn't forgotten, just like he did with Naomi. And that's all we had on today's M-Kids Bible Adventures. If you liked what you heard, you can go to the Miracle Kids bookshop and buy a book or two to read to your kids or to read for yourself. All right, join us again next week for another adventure. So from me and Natty, it's goodbye.
See you, kids.